Ooh, hey, it's Gord, it's Weedy Weekend 57. 57. Number 57. I like the number 57. I am not sure why. I just like it. This one is a weedless one. The two boys are in the next room. Even though the door's closed, I'm going to keep it weedless. A little bit medicated. I have a lot of rub. A lot of CBD rub. Cinnamon from Cannabis. MMJ, THC. I have a lot of that rub on my back right now to help me. I hope your weekend's been good. It's been a busy week in the world of cannabis. A really busy week. We're going to strike on quite a few stories here, and let's get at her. Pitter patter. Let's get at her. I started with a funny one, but a true one. Breaking down more of the walls, the myths, the stigmas, the bullshit that was the marijuana past, and let's move into the cannabis future. Let's do that with breaking another wall down. 4 years, cannabis has been blamed on low sperm count. People with low sperm count have had it blamed on their cannabis use or whatever it be. But this article talking about a really in-depth study researching mice has found, and I quote, "Not only does the study poke holes in the widely held belief that cannabis lowers sperm count, it also suggests that cannabis could be used as part of therapeutic treatment for male infertility." That's right. Another prohibitionist claim has all but been proven false again, and this time the exact opposite could be true. Certainly more study is required. One study doesn't break all the old ones, but one's got to remember all the old studies should be questioned, should be tainted. You should look at them with a really skeptical mind. Be a skeptic, please. Let's move on to the next. Oh, and the article did this, the study did this by testing mice. And the article makes a joke about how they were able to extract sperm from mice is not a question I wanted to ask. And I found that funny. Normally right now I'd have a talk with y'all, but I'm not going to. We're moving on to the next story, which is in Pennsylvania. PA is starting to develop their medical marijuana programs. They say that it's going to take 18 to 24 months to get them completely off the ground. There's a lot of regulations and understanding, and they're trying to borrow the best from those that are out there already, and I think they're doing a really good job. I'm going to quote the article because I like what they've done specifically in Pennsylvania, unlike others, and I hope others take this step too. As with any new industry, it's going to take time to get it off the ground. They are expecting around 18 to 24 months at least before patients will be able to access medical marijuana in the state. However, as a way to thank the parents who fought so hard for this bill to pass, children will be able to register with the state and access medical marijuana from other states with similar programs. Main reason for the temporary draft of the regulations. So you see, Pennsylvania Health Secretary Dr. Karen Murphy, I wish our health ministers were so up on logic. The drafters of the legislation, she says, the drafters of the legislation, as well as the governor, as well as the Department of Health, wanted to be sure that we assisted these parents that really were instrumental in supporting this legislation. Not only has medical marijuana been approved in that state and is going to come forward, but these legislators are smart enough to understand the need of the children is coming first. Where even 5 years ago, the argument was, let's keep it away from kids, and that was to stop the end of prohibition. Now, as we go into legalization, the table is turned and said, let's get it to the kids first. Let's develop that first. So, because they need it. They've understood it. There, it's been educated and brought forward properly, and they understand it's a medicine. Get it to the kids first. And, you know, elderly second. Children and women first. It's always been that way, right? And that's not a patriarchal thing. That's just life. The next one. Let me turn the volume down on this in case I get more. There. This next article is one that pokes fun at our Toronto police force in Ontario, Canada. Things that the Toronto police care less about than marijuana dispensaries. And it goes to poke fun at how they are not looking after things in their own backyard, but are certainly doubling down and spending what's going to amount to millions on arresting people who in 6 months may be doing something legal. So I'm just sharing that as something fun. It's from Think Free blog, and it's sad, but it's true. And you know what? Tell Toronto police what you think about them. The next one, the story I'm carrying, I've carried a couple of times this week, but I want to carry it again, and I want you to hear Jody Emery. She is a wonderful speaker, wife of Mark Emery, who spent 5 years in jail in the U.S. on pot, Canadian advocate, lawyer, smart man, and this is his wife speaking about Trudeau's promises. I'm going to turn the microphone. I'm not going to play the video so that you watch it. I mean, it's just her talking.
Legalization, Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government lied to the Canadian people. This is a new form of prohibition. This is worse than anything we saw under the Harper government. I think Canadians should immediately call Justin Trudeau, John Tory, and Bill Blair and ask why we're seeing more people being harmed under their so-called legalization than we ever saw under Stephen Harper's anti-marijuana policies. This is about protecting the corporate profits of stock market businesses who have sent the police to arrest peaceful people to protect their own financial interests. That is sick and disgusting and despicable. Shame on the Toronto Police Service and shame on the Toronto City Government for harming peaceful people. Because if you have 50 complaints, 50 complaints, you have 50,000 sick people last night who were stressed and sick, and their doctor says, no, I won't give you medical marijuana.
I'm just going to stop it. Let me put the microphone back. I'm just going to stop it there because that's enough. You know, this is so true. I speak to those people on a daily basis. No, I'm not in touch with that many people, but I have people in Ontario that talk to me on a daily basis, and they are worried and they are scared. And I know a few who their own dispensary got raided and it was only serving medical people. So, you know, don't believe all the bullshit you're hearing out there. This Liberal government has to step in or understand that we will call bullshit on their move. Next story. Sorry I'm not so, you know, I'd love to have a talk with y'all. I'd love to have a talk with y'all. One day. We need to still get rid of more stigma before I can do that. Because really, I could smoke it right here. The door's closed. They're outside playing. But I get called on anything that's even close to wrong. What a society. Let's move on to the next one. And it's about an oral fluid pot law. Yeah, the Liberals are out there and they're looking for a way to determine how impaired a driver is. Because they're moving forward. I get it. I get it. They're looking at the kits are currently used in Europe, Bill Blair tells CBC. That doesn't mean they're accurate or do what they're intended to do. I have said this before. I'm sharing the story. I found the story bullshit. But the reason I share it now and right after the talk about the Toronto raid dispensaries, now is the time for the grassroots movement of Canada to speak as loudly and as strongly as they can as to what they want from their government as to this legislation. Because things like this, it's a stick that measure. You stick it on the tongue, and if it comes back and colors red, that means there's THC in the person's system. This is sad. We have not yet determined. There are more studies that suggest that a person under normal use of pot is not impaired than suggest that they are. We need to determine that impairment first and then find an appropriate way to test for it. I will test at any time of any day with one of those things on my tongue as to having high THC content, because I am a daily user throughout the day. Does not mean I'm high, does not mean I'm impaired. It just means there's THC in my system. This is wrong. This is why we need to be vocal and need to have only fact-based legislation, not opinion-based legislation. This is opinion-based because they're saying, in their opinion, if you're high, if you have THC in your system, you're therefore impaired. So let's test for THC in the system. No, determine what impairment really is first. Redefine impairment to an nth degree so that you can test appropriately for it. Right? Peace and cheers. You know, this is one thing I can do. Little bit of CBD left over. I found it. And no smoke. Just so that I can cheers to that. We have to stand up for things. Now, the next story comes out of Michigan. This is from Marijuana Times. And I'm going to read this, then I'm going to go in a little bit of a rant. This is a segue because it is tied to the Toronto situation. Let me explain. Things are getting exciting for the folks in Michigan who are hoping to see recreational marijuana legalized by the end of the year. After months of gathering petition signatures, the group MI Legalize has officially turned in over 350,000 signatures, which should be more than enough for them to reach the 253,000 signatures needed for them to find the initiative placed on the ballot this November. Now, I share it for two reasons. Hurrah for Michigan, another state moving towards legalization, or at least trying to get the vote to decide to move towards legalization. It's a start. But I also want to tie that number, 253,000 signatures were gained. Actually, 350,000 were gained. 253,000 needed just to get the legislature in Michigan to vote on whether they'll talk about legalizing. Yet the Toronto police force moved on a petition of 53 people to shut down 40-some businesses and arrest over 90 people. 53 signatures. That's why I want to tie those two. We need reality. Toronto was there was something else behind that. And I can't say what it was because I don't have any proof, but corporate. You know? More from Marijuana Times is a Dutch study that says legal cannabis cultivation would boost human rights. The title doesn't lend itself too well, sorry about the pain, too well to what they're really doing. The study has basically said, we've looked at the whole world and we said that if you took the legality out of the cultivation, made it legal, then it says cultivation leads to violent crime, corruption, fires, Legionella contamination, smell issues, and other problems in residential areas. There's also a health risk for users because quality or safety cannot be guaranteed. In an illicit market, there are no spot checks to see if the nutrients or pesticides growers are using are safe for human consumption. The report also says that regulating cultivation and trade would help ensure quality, provide control of the supply chain, reduce crime, and protect the health of consumers and others involved in production. It's the ultimate. 2016 is a good year of facts coming forward and people not being able to argue the facts anymore. This has been petitioned to the United Nations to say you need to change your laws internationally so that countries like Canada, Mexico can legalize fully. Portugal, good for Portugal. Let's move on to the next story. Got lots of stories. That again was from Marijuana Times, so is this. This is about, can opiates actually be causing chronic pain? Opiates are given way too often for chronic pain. I took years to get off of mine. I'm on nothing but cannabis now. I want to read this. When it comes to opiates, we're starting to recognize more and more of the dark side of something that was meant to provide relief. One of the biggest problems in our country right now is opiate addiction and overdose due to doctors prescribing narcotic painkillers to patients for many injuries that could have been managed differently. What if those pills were were meant to temporarily relieve your pain? We're actually making it worse in the long run. A new study from Colorado University in Boulder suggests that this is very likely to be true. The study was run by Peter Grace and Linda Watkins and took place over the course of 3 months. First, they mimicked chronic nerve pain by opening up rats' thighs and tying a thread around the nerve. Weird. The thread dissolved after 6 weeks. 10 days after that, the rats received a treatment of morphine for a total of 5 days. From there, they tested the rat's sensitivity to pain for the next 3 months. What it turned out, and I'll just read the key finding. Our key finding is that we were able to demonstrate that brief treatment with a painkiller, like morphine, doubled the duration of chronic pain. Really interesting. The ones that were not treated with morphine, much after the injury has healed, their sensitivity to pain had gone right back to normal, the way it was prior to the test. Those that had been treated with morphine took twice as long to recover to get back to that baseline pain sensitivity. So in other words, it doubled their chronic pain. Wow. So opiates, not even if they are blocking the pain temporarily, they're just going to make it last longer for you. Next story. I love this story. Albuquerque baby returns home after starting cannabis treatment, the youngest ever to receive CBD treatment for convulsions. She was only 2 months old when they started it. In that 2 months, her convulsions had torn her brain apart and made it so they even said she'll never even lift her head. But 3 months of treatment at Colorado, she's now going home. And I urge you to go to the link below and press play down near the bottom of the story and just see that little girl at 5-6 months old, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Sure, there's damage that was caused pre-CBD in that first 2 months because of seizures, but even that's turning around. How much? Who knows? But no new damage got caused, and the old damage is slowly being repaired, and she is an active young child again. It is beautiful. Amy Lee is still taking hemp oil called Haley's Hope, and she and her family must still return to Colorado for checkups. But this is also going to help them in Albuquerque push for better legislation in their own state. Beautiful story. Great from raw story. Second to last, osteoporosis. Last week shared about multiple sclerosis. Now it's osteoporosis. To treat osteoporosis, those afflicted with osteoporosis have to suffer moderate to serious side effects of the drugs, which include esophageal inflammation, nausea, abnormal heartbeat, and even bone damage of the jaw. But it's being found that CBD, and I reported on this probably 8 months ago, CBD is becoming well known as a calcium builder, as a bone builder. Those breaks treated with CBD are often stronger than the bone was prior to. It's an incredible story. I urge y'all to read it because cannabinoid receptors and bone turnover, it's the first part of this story, is just an incredible read, and not something that I should read to you. And we're going to end we're probably going to be a good half hour. We're going to end on a neat little story about Bernie. Bernie's a 130-pound Swiss mountain dog that began to have seizures, bad seizures, and they put him on some kind of drugs that was really hurting him. So they took him off and put him on CBD, and he's better. You know, that's really it. I'm only going to read this. It sounds ridiculous until you experience it yourself, said Bernie's owner, who says his dog hasn't had the seizure in 4 months. This doesn't sound silly to me. Dogs have a endocannabinoid system that is about 98% similar to ours. So the effects we get, they get. The positives we get, they get. And the ability to overdose, in other words, inability to overdose, they have that too. I will share just one brief story of my own dog, and then we'll go. This is very much like my story. My Dachshunds suffer from, I forget the name of it, but it's a spinal problem caused by their long back. And sometimes it can be brought on by eating too much or by running down the stairs. They have a hard time running downstairs. I noticed my dog, it was 2 months ago. She could barely make it to her dish. Her legs weren't moving and they weren't moving right. I knew what had happened. Now, take her to a vet. This is going to be $1,000 and a couple of days treatment of just having her immobilized for a while. What I did instead was Rick Simpson oil, CBD. I had it in syringe. I put a little bit, the same amount I'd give myself, which is a very tiny bit, on the top of her mouth so that she had to suck it in. Did that again about 3 or 4 hours later. And she slept for probably 16 hours. But the next day, she came walking up to me with her tail wagging, wanting to go outside, feeling better. It works. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a medicine that just grows wild. This doesn't surprise me. It surprises people. It doesn't surprise me. It's a medicine. Medicine works. This is the end of Weedy Weekend 57. I like that number. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish it was a weedy one because I feel some anxiety. I feel a lot of pain today. Had a big day yesterday, big day. And my pain threshold is very small today. So, peace and cheers, love and harmony. If you find people without smiles, make them smile. Smile at them. Throw smiles at them. Do something. Peace, cheers, love, harmony.